There's some disclaimers here. This presentation and the speakers do not constitute individualized tax and legal advice. This information is for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific tax, legal, investment, or planning advice, which can be provided on an individualized or personalized basis. I don't have the skill to write it up, so we have a lawyer in the room, an attorney, Jerry Lagado, so he helped me put that disclosure, which is required by the compliance in our industry, and that's what it is. Now, I have to tell you that I can't match the eloquence and the intelligence of Dr. Sairam Parthasarathy, who is just phenomenal in all the insights that he offered. We both come from India, and in India, his name translates to God. He is Lord Krishna, so if you know Rama, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna. So his last name translates to Lord Krishna, and his first name is another God's name, so he's God squared, so he's mightier than everybody else. So I was expecting him to be 100 feet tall, but okay. So we're going to have some fun with this today. We're giving away some prizes for interaction, so don't feel shy in asking questions. And there's no such thing as a stupid question. Simply raise your hand, and if I'm stumped, then I can ask Jerry, because he's got more IQ than I, so he can answer.
There may not be anything like a stupid question, but there are stupid answers, so be careful.
Yeah. So just by way of introduction, Jerry Lagado started his practice once upon a time, and then he switched to the dark side. He was a financial advisor and one of the greatest insurance people on the planet, but then he decided that it was too boring and he wanted to become an attorney. So he became an attorney, and I've had the pleasure of working with Jerry for many, many years, maybe 20 years, and he's one of the most, I would say, informed and awesome attorneys when it comes to trust and estate planning, which is an area which would be quite important for everybody. I also want to give a shout out to my team. Vipin, you guys come, Tom, Sanjay, Mac Javadekar, who's a special guest, and he showed up upon my invitation. And I can't say enough things about Mac, so let me say this. He's worked with people who, like the DNA or something, Nobel Prize winning, and then with Pfizer, his response. Mac, why don't you say it? Because I'll be short in telling you. And again, just like Dr. Parthasarathy, I was expecting him to be 100 feet tall.
No, thank you, Sekhar. It is a pleasure to be here, and Sekhar, thanks for inviting me here. And I decided, yes, if Sekhar calls, I'm coming. So I came just to give you my brief background. I got my PhD in pharmaceutics from the University of Minnesota. I was talking to some folks from Minnesota yesterday. And after having finished my PhD in 1982, I started with Pfizer. And essentially, I worked with Pfizer for 28 years. And I had an opportunity to work with the presidents of research at Pfizer directly, and had a chance to really make a difference in terms of science. Had a chance to work on formulations of Zoloft, Zithromax at the bench level. And then also Viagra was obviously discovered in the UK side of things from Pfizer side. But then they said, we need some, better Viagra. So I had a chance to work at the bench for a faster onset Viagra, which had an action, in 30 minutes or less. So that was something that I enjoyed doing for Pfizer, and then also I could participate on the M&A and things that Pfizer did in early 2000 and beyond. So I'm not going to take much time, but I think the great part of this is, I touched upon all the therapeutic areas that Pfizer touched, and I think this is one of the therapeutic areas that I am very interested in, and I am so happy to be here, and thanks, Sekhar, again for inviting me.
Thank you, Mac. He didn't mention that George W. Bush invited him to India to meet with the Prime Minister of India on certain things. He also didn't mention that he bought Lamborghini, Mr. Tonini Lamborghini, to India on a collaborative effort. So he's very humble. He won't say a lot of things, but the reason he's here, Mac is one of our strategic multipliers. Let me explain what that means. I live in a collaborative world. I, by myself, can only help people to the extent of maybe 25%. But through collaboration, the other 75% happens, and that's where Mac comes in. Mac's an investment banker. He hasn't mentioned that. He can bring startups all the way to becoming unicorns. He has access to money on the street. So those kind of things. And I, of course, work with Jerry. So this thing should work. Yes, okay. There you go. I also want to give a shout out to Dr. Jerry, who yesterday, Sanjay, why don't you come here for a minute? And the reason this is very important is I met Dr. David Gergen through Divine Intervention in March this year. He was at a program attending to his health after he nearly went to heaven and came back, and I was in the same program. And I was explaining to him that my son has severe apnea. And it so happened that later that month I was in Phoenix in Tempe at a program called the Genius Network. It's local here. You can look it up, Joe Polish. Anyway, long story short, David said, bring Sanjay in. And yesterday, Dr. Gergen mentioned this. My son had an AHI of triple digit, over 100. And he got all fixed up. And I can tell you that he used to snore like a steam engine, and so do I. But now we're both, in the 20s and all that. So, Sanjay, you want to say anything? Yeah.
Incredibly humbled to be here. Gergen's product, alongside many of your products, have changed my life as a young adult. Very happy to be here and be part of this conference.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Tom and Vipin, who made this conference happen. There's great things happening in my company that I know nothing about, but Tom and Vipin do. So appreciate it. And thank you. And like Dr. Jerry, who said, yesterday, I wish I knew somebody like Dr. Who 25 years ago. And maybe, prevention would have solved the problem with my son, who's now 29. I also want to talk about sleep, because this event is all about sleep, right? So I don't know if people are familiar with the Oura Ring. I wear an Oura Ring like this. And what the Oura Ring does for me, if you look at the left side, that's the day when I did not wear my Herbst device. No restfulness, no REM sleep, I couldn't dream. I had a little bit of deep sleep, but nothing to be proud about. This was yesterday. I wore my Herbst device, went to bed early, wanted to be meaningful this morning. So total sleep, 7 hours, 41 minutes. Restfulness was good. I was dreaming for 2 hours and 19 minutes. Got 12% of deep sleep. My timing was optimal. Everything was good. And that's what the Herbst device did for me. When I travel, sometimes I forget my Herbst device. and next day I'm daytime sleepiness, right? So I just wanted to talk about that. And I also want to give a shout out to Mark from Somnomed. I took this, and my room has light filtering in. Even the temperature thing has light. So I use this, sound sleep. So I got some good news, I got some great news, and I have great insights with the help of Jerry. We're going to talk about asset protection, idiopathic tax myopathy, financial liposuction, and we'll finally seize the day. And Alan is going to come here and throw me out when I run out of tricks or time. So that's what it is. Now, I know people may be thinking, well, there's stuff happening in the economy. What's going on? I mean, things are upside down and all of that. So I don't think there's bad news. Personally, I don't believe in bad news. If you want bad news, you can go to CNN, continuously negative news, or Negative Broadcasting Corporation, NBC, that kind of thing, or MSNBC. They'll take your peace of mind away, and they'll rob you of your sleep. Because all bad news makes good copy. That's an old publishing trick, right? So, but I have some great news. I also want to talk about Matt Ridley and some of my ideas. I'm a contagiously positive guy. I'm the eternal optimist. Matt Ridley wrote a book, The Rational Optimist, and in there, if I had to summarize it in 5 words or less, the future is better than you think. And the reason it's better than you think, ladies and gentlemen, is because this is a great time to be alive. You think about how since Johann Gutenberg in the 15th or the 16th century created the printing press, and from there we got the steam engine and so on and so forth, up until the microchip, right? And we went from analog to digital overnight. Not overnight, it's kind of a slow process, but it happens and nobody tells you when it happens. I had one of those Motorola phones that Michael Douglas used in Wall Street. It was my first phone. It had a carry bag, and it was a nuisance. But now you carry a smartphone, right? More power. So lots of things. Now my son does augmented reality and virtual reality as an entrepreneur in LA. There's so many things. There's machine learning, artificial intelligence, neural networks, quantum computing, autonomous driving, bioprinting, 3D printing, robotics. In your industry, if you think about it, if it's not already happening, I think it is, I'm not sure. But what you put in your mouth can give you all kinds of data, right? And you can sort that data, pico, femto level data, right? And that data mining is going to cure all kinds of things. It'll prevent cancer someday because stem cells. I mean, think about it. So I really think that the future is better than you believe it is. Craig Venter in 2000 mapped the human genome, right? At that time, it cost about $20 million. We demonetized it, we democratized it. You can get your own, DNA for less than $1,000. I was in India in April, and at the airport, there's a company called Map My Genome, $100, $100 US. So that's what's going on in the world, right? Anyway, that was just something about nothing, so really. I'm here to talk about a few things, and I'll be sensitive to time. So Alan, just give me a 15-minute notice because I don't want to run out of time. So I'm the founder of wealthDNA. Now, it's got nothing to do with medicine. I just thought it was a clever name. So I looked it up, and I was able to go to the US Patent Office in Virginia and get a registered trademark on it, making it my intellectual property. And it's nothing different than traditional financial advisors using a board-certified process doctored up by the Certified Financial Planning Board, which is 6 steps, really. You get to know who you are, walk in their shoes, figure out what's going on between the 2 years, and then you gather data and you analyze the data. That's your diagnostic, that's your X-ray, that's your imaging, and then you come up with a plan of action. So I founded wealthDNA with the simple premise that I need to know my clients' dangers, DOS. DOS is not Microsoft DOS, this is dangers, opportunities, and strengths. Not my intellectual property. I go to Strategic Coach in Chicago, Illinois. The founder, Dan Sullivan, it's his intellectual property used with permission. So DOS is nothing but your SWOT analysis in management school when we were taught, you got to find out strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So we took that and we said DOS. What challenges do you have that need to be solved? That's dangers. The flip side of it, the other side of the coin, your opportunities, is a Chinese saying, may your opportunities be bigger than your challenges. So for every danger, there's also an opportunity. And the opportunities is what we want to focus on, and we use your strengths to eliminate your dangers and to capitalize on your opportunities. So then we have physical fitness, and I just want to play a little game with you, ladies and gentlemen. In your bag is something like this. It's a tape. So if you want to take it out, okay. So let's see. A lot of people are going to live beyond 72. In fact, Jerry started practicing law and dispensed advice to Moses, so he's very, very... So on the flip side, Jerry, if you want to live all the way to 184, you can. So if we just take whatever our birthday is now, whatever our age is, let's just cut that off. I'll use my example, right? So... I'm 60. Actually, I'm 61, but I feel a lot younger today. So just cut off your number, whatever your number is. And the next question I want to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, is how long do you think you want to live? Now, everybody knows this. That's not a trick question. It comes from how long my parents lived, genetics and everything else like that. So just write down, but before you write down that number, I want you to add 10 years for all the reasons that map my genome and all the medical advances that we're getting in life today. I think you can easily add 10 years to that. So I wanted to live to 85, but I don't want to check out of the planet at 85 if I'm perfectly healthy. And the Herbs device and exercise and nutrition and everything else is making me healthier. So I want to add 10 more years to that. So let's just cut off that, whatever your number is, right? So I cut it off at 95. And the math is pretty simple. So I've got at least 35 years of miles left, right? So from the first part, now you don't have to follow this tape anymore. Let's just throw it away. But you get the point. The exercise here is, what are you going to do with those remaining years? I got 35 years. That's longevity risk in financial planning. I got to make all the money that I want to in the next 75 years. That's then going to support another 20 years, but I got 35 years, according to me. Now you might say, what if you don't make it? My son said, you'd be disappointed, Dad. I said, no, I'll be gone. You'll be disappointed. So we don't know when we're going to leave the planet. When they ring the bell, you got to go. So whatever time you have left, I mean, I got 15 years to make up all the stuff, if you will, whether it's equity, stock, whatever it is, whatever I need to support my future, I have 15 years of time. And then I have 20 years in retirement until I slow down. So at 94, I might do the New York Marathon if I can, but that's a goal. So that's, I just wanted to kind of play with these numbers for a little bit to see and gain perspective on financial planning. And that's why there is no bad news. If we have that much time, and the last 2 years were according to Alan Greenspan, this happened in the 90s, irrational exuberance or affluenza. That's what happened in the last 2 years. So just as unreal as that was, what's happening today with the negative 20 or 25% is equally unreal. Right? So that's the good news. The good news is that you need not worry about it. And if you can get a CWO, and usually they're financial advisors or CPAs, that's their title. They're the chief worrying officer, delegated it to them. You don't need to worry. So I want to talk about fiscal fitness. Fiscal fitness is the next step in our financial process, and that's just a way of us to kind of get your imaging, right? So we want to know your assets, your liabilities, your income, your expenses, your policies, your contracts, everything else like that. And that's really important because that'll tell us what we need to now do. What are the remedies? So it's first DX and then it's RX. It's not the other way around. Most people want to go buy a product. We don't sell products. We sell direction, leadership, clarity, and confidence. Those are our 4 deliverables. And the only way we can find that out is through fiscal fitness. We need to know how strong you are, or where the weaknesses are, and all that. And then the next step in our program is tax optimization. Again, Jerry, you worked long years protecting people's assets. And taxes, in our opinion, it's idiopathic tax myopathy. There's no known reason why you need to pay a single dollar of more taxes unless you want to. It's completely voluntary. We live in a confiscatory society, and just want to take a commercial break.
Look, little girl, can we postpone this for another day? It's unsettling having you just sit there.
But my report's due tomorrow.
What's it on?
Why government matters.
Really? It's never too early to learn that the government is a greedy piglet that suckles on a taxpayer's teat until they have sore, chapped nipples. I'm gonna need a different metaphor to give this 9-year-old. What's your name, ma'am?
Lauren Burkus.
Lauren. My name is Ron Swanson, and I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about the miserable, screwed up world of local government.
You have mustard in your mustache.
Don't sass me, Burkus. Let's get started. Life, liberty, and property. It's John Locke. This is your lunch. Now, you should be able to do whatever you want to with this, right? If you want to eat all of it, great. If you want to throw it away in the garbage, that's your prerogative. But here I come, the government. And I get to take 40% of your lunch. And that, Lauren, is how taxes work.
That's not fair.
You're learning. Uh-oh. Capital gains tax.
So Jerry is an expert in asset protection. And we talked about at least 3 things that we don't have all the time in the world. This can't be a 6-hour briefing, so we condensed what we can. We're just going to give you some ideas to think about. So really, Jerry, you had an experience with a client of ours, and that's his home, by the way. It's in New Jersey. It's definitely north of a few $1 million. And what happened there, Jerry?
This is the Wyckoff?
Yes. I didn't want to say that to protect our clients.
Well, it's
but we don't have a
town.
street address, so it's
It's a
okay.
big town. The poor fellow owns a zillion Dunkin' Donuts in New York City. And unfortunately, in the middle of the night, one of the managers was shot to death. And the family is suing the owner of the Dunkin' Donuts for $2 or $3 million, or maybe more. That's his house. It's not very well protected against the $2 million lawsuit. And if they win, and it goes over the insurance, or if the insurance is not applicable, or whatever, he's in serious trouble. And it's too late now for him to protect his assets. You can't protect your assets when the sky is cloudy. You have to protect your assets when the sky is clear, when no one is threatening you, when there's no action against you, when there's no looming problem against you. Once there is, the game's over. Your assets, such as they are at risk. So it's a little late for this fellow, but we're going to help him as much as we can.
How would you help somebody for who it's not late? What can they do?
The problem is, it's coming from the speakers, but I can't hear you. The folks can hear you.
Okay.
Say again.
How can you help somebody before,
Yeah.
if it's not too late?
There are a zillion ways to help you folks who are in high liability professions, you folks who are high profile targets, because by and large, your wealth is out there and it's exposed. And so much of it is at risk. And if you haven't been sued yet, as I'm sure some of you have, you are going to be sued. This is a ridiculously litigious society, and if I may, we have far too many lawyers making too much money at it. So, what do we do? If you want to protect your assets to the extreme, you have to take some steps now while the sky is clear. We can talk at length and for hours and hours about the many different types of techniques, legal structures that you can erect around your assets so that it'll be protected. But it would not be very helpful. Instead, I'd like to just give you 3 general principles of what we're talking about in asset protection. Number 1, we want to make you invisible. This fellow, if you Google his address, the owners will come up, himself and his wife. He is not invisible. He's right out there, high profile, personal names only. It doesn't have to be that way. He could have someone else or some other company that he owns own his beautiful home, which, by the way, is 44,000 square feet. Incredible. And that's one technique. Lower your wealth profile. Take your name off your assets. Don't give up control. Take your name off your assets. Number 2 is aim to be bulletproof. How do you do that? You hide behind certain legal structures that provide liability shields. For example, limited liability companies, limited partnerships, trusts, all kinds of techniques, but nothing is totally bulletproof. They can still get at you. Okay? And often they will get at you. Depends on what the judge had for breakfast. He may say, this is all nonsense. I don't want to talk to you about these folks and their remote ownership of their assets. I want to just pierce right through that and let these creditors come after the people. So nothing is completely bulletproof, but there are an extraordinary amount of protection that you can have if you so desire. And then the third principle is to have you be poverty-stricken. Be poverty-stricken in the sense of when they pierce all of these shields and the judgment is against you and the $2 or $3 million is at stake, you show up with empty pockets and you say, I'm sorry, I don't own anything anymore. I am poverty-stricken. So you can't reach me. Where is your stuff? Your stuff is in various legal entities, IRAs, 401ks, limited liability companies, limited partnerships. You don't own them. Those are owned by entities, and you own the entities. So the principles are, let's make you invisible. Let's make it as bulletproof as you can, but if you do get shot, let's make you poverty-stricken. Now you say, well, that's wonderful. I've just given away everything, so now nobody can get anything. Not the case. You can retain the benefit, the full benefit of all of those assets that you hide elsewhere. When you hide the ball, you can still play ball. And the people who are your beneficiaries will also have access to those benefits and control over those benefits. You give it up, but you don't give up the benefits and you don't give up the control. That's the essence of asset protection. And again, the techniques are very involved, very legalistic, very laden with tax ramifications, but the principles are simple. Invisibility, bulletproof, and poverty-stricken to a greater or lesser extent. That's asset protection. Terribly important to do it while the sky is clear and nobody is threatening you. Once it clouds up, or there's a hurricane on its way, forget about it.
Jerry, let's talk about taxes. I mean, there's two types of taxes. There's income taxes, that's during your life. And we live in a confiscatory society, so the government is not happy with your 40% and your capital gains and everything. On the back end, Uncle Sam wants, if you're worth more than today, if you're worth more than 22 million on a combined basis, or 10 million because Trump changed it, and so on and so forth. So taxes have, from the time Ronald Reagan was around, from 675, Bush wanted to sunset it. Nobody could. They keep kicking the can down the road. So I just thought the Boston Tea Party is all about repeal and come back, and you want to, but this time you only have a minute, please. Got to watch the clock.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. In addition to income taxes and capital gains, all that good stuff, we have in the United States a thing called the estate tax. We've had it ever since we were a country, but the modern estate tax is since 1976. You don't have to know, obviously you don't have to know the detailed history of the estate tax, but I can tell you this, it's a moving target. They change it every single year for the last 20 years. And right now it's $12 million. An exemption of $12 million applies. So anything over $12 million that you die with is going to be taxed at the rate of 40%. If you put a couple together, each one, you can pool each one's $12 million. So you can pass an estate, for example, of $24 million onto your children without any estate tax. That's today. Yesterday, in terms of years, it was 5 million. And in 2026, if nobody does anything in Congress, which is not unlikely for Congress, actually. But if nobody does anything, in 2026, the exemption is going to go back to 5 million. If we adopt certain Democratic proposals at this point, it'll be considerably less than 5 million. We don't know where it's going. But we can say this, it's worth protecting your assets against that guy eating the sandwich, against eating the sandwich of the estate taxes and cheating your kids out of, really cheating your kids out of their legacy. And take home this, if nothing else. The estate tax is an absolutely voluntary tax. You do not have to pay it if you plan properly. Big difference between getting an inheritance of $10 million or $20 million or $5 million and getting an inheritance of nothing because your parents volunteered to pay the estate tax. It is an absolutely voluntary tax. There are a zillion painless ways of getting around it, and come see us. We'll talk about what are some of the best ways for you. So, in fact, some of these things that you use for asset protection during life against lawsuits are also very handy for protecting you at the time of death against the estate tax. And just one more quickie, if I can.
Take your time and hurry up.
The estate tax as a focus of estate planning is, frankly, in my view, a little overdone. It's incredibly serious, but the focus is so strong on it by most estate and tax lawyers that it's overdone. There's a lot more to your estate planning than avoiding that tax. So Sekhar's DNA process is aimed at getting at all of the important data that is in your heart and in your soul with respect to the rest of your family. It ain't just all estate tax avoidance. It is how do I want my legacy to look after I'm gone?
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. That's very, very helpful. As I said, we can't compress all that can be done into an hour, but we'll be around later hanging out. We even have a booth, so please feel free to stop by. Jerry will be around, ask questions. But avoiding taxes is completely legal, right? But evading taxes is not. So the best practitioners, which is your CPA and your financial advisor, in collaboration with a seasoned tax professional like Jerry, can really do wonders by rearranging just a few things. It's like sleep medicine, you know, before you didn't get any sleep, and then you're diagnosed and you can get a dorsal fin or you can get a herpes device, maybe the same thing, I don't know. But essentially, now you sleep, right? It takes an hour to get the impression, it takes 5 hours to make that device, and now you can get sound sleep. So if you want peace of mind and you want to sleep better, take care of this. Don't ignore it, don't postpone it, don't procrastinate, don't sit on it. So I also want to talk about, everybody knows this gentleman here, he's not there anymore, but other than E equals MC square, he always thought, he was most fascinated by the concept of compound interest, time value of money. He called it the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who does not, pays it, right? So the simple premise is that a piece of capital, if you have $100,000, a piece of capital will, the earnings on it, compounded, will be many times its own multiple. So 100,000 can become 200,000 in 10 years at 7%, 400,000 in 20 years, 800 in 30, right? So it just multiplies. What Albert Einstein did not know, which I want to add, is that if you can tax defer the compounding, right, that would be the ninth wonder of the world. So not only can you have your money, but you can postpone the taxes. I would say to you, you can make more money saving taxes than you can by making more money. So don't chase returns. It's meaningless because Uncle Sam is on the other end asking for his 40% later on, during your lifetime and later on. So the race should not be making more money, the action should be saving taxes. You will make more money saving taxes than you can by making more money. So that is our tax optimization program. We often collaborate with CPAs, attorneys, investment advisors, and insurance advisors. So we were having an argument yesterday, and after the second drink, Jerry was really loud and boisterous, and he says, attorneys are the best. And I said, no, financial advisors are the best, because without knowing what to do, how can you fix them up? He says, no, attorneys are the best. So, and then we had an insurance professional, Tom Caparasso, join us. He says, insurance professionals are the best. So we decided to settle it by checking with the authorities. So we wrote an email, which we got an instant response. We wrote an email to God. God came back with a reply. It was a no reply. It says, this doesn't exist. The email's now not God, but it's goddess. So he says, okay, write the same email. And the response came back. And it was an interesting response, and it went this way. It says, we created all humans equally. So there's no best or better or anything like that, okay? So just stop fighting about who's better than who else and all that. And sincerely, Goddess DDS. That's what it said. So I just wanted to tell you about that. So we collaborate. And when we collaborate, I see a lot of people next door, all myo-aligner and this company and that company. The collaboration in any industry beats competition. That's what it is all about. So I want to kind of end this. Jerry, what do you say?
As we've said before, and as my demeanor and my posture and my bearing and my prematurely gray hair will attest, I've been doing this a lot of years. And people ask as we go on, he said, what do you find the biggest risk? Is it the market? Is it market risk, or is it timing risk? Or what do you find to be the biggest risk? And as far as I'm concerned, these days, for people roughly in the category that you are, the biggest risk is inertia. You have to do something in order to get your financial house in order, to protect it, and to organize it in such a way that at your passing, it will go the way you want it to go. So, greatest risk, do nothing. So many of us fall into that. The greatest threat, inertia, yes, indeed. And the greatest remedy, in all modesty, is contact us. Reach out to us, or to somebody else who does things that we do, not as well, of course, but somebody else who does things that we do, so that you can begin the process of organization and implementation of a life plan and an estate plan. If you have not already filled out one of our cards, which is in your bag, and leave it at our booth, we will contact you if you do that, and that's the easy way to do it. Make us spend the nickel to reach out to you. So fill out one of those cards, let us know what your priorities are, give us your contact information, and we'll reach out to you for a relatively brief 15-minute conversation about what we should do next, if anything. That's it for us.
Yes, and it will not show up as spam risk because we will only contact you if you want us to contact you. Nobody will follow up, otherwise there'll be, this is a public service announcement, it's not a commercial. We do well in our business, but we just have time for a couple of questions, Alan, if there are.
No, I was going to actually announce the break. Sorry. Do you want to take questions? Or
We will take 1 or 2 questions and our answers will be equally brief, if there are any.
So what I was thinking, I just want to announce we're going to have a 30-minute break now, but if you want, we can take a quick question for Sekhar, if anyone has one.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate your time.